Hi, I'm Michael Caju.
And I'm Adee Caju, and you're listening to the WAG podcast. This podcast is about health, wellness, and personal development.
Each episode is a short conversation between Adee and I on a single topic with actionable steps. We cover everything from food, mindset, fitness, and relationships.
We started WAG because of the way health and fitness changed our lives, so we hope to share a tool or two that helps you along your way. Hi, Michael. Welcome back.
Hello, hello.
Today, we're talking about one of my favorite topics ever, relationships. One of the things that I always talk about being the most proud of in my whole life is our relationship. And it comes up a lot on podcasts. And this week, I was talking to Taz Barber, and she was asking about our relationship. And she said, what if you're an absolute beginner? Where do you even start? And I do get a lot of DMs on Instagram, something around the lines of, you know, I'm in a relationship and I want to work on my relationship. I'm not sure my partner wants to work on the relationship too. We actually, nothing's wrong. There's nothing. It's a lot easier, I think, for a lot of people for something to be wrong and then to start working on your relationship. And in this instance, nothing's necessarily wrong. How do I talk to my partner about it without making them think that I think something's wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've been with people sometimes where we talk about working on your relationship and then one person is like, well, there's no reason for us to work. They're like, we're great. Like, there's nothing really wrong. There's like this stigma around working on your relationship.
It's very taboo.
Yeah. Why do you think
that? There's a lot of... That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that there's a ton of shame around the word and the concept of sex, going back thousands of years in all of the world's major religions, and they have some reasons that may be good, some that might not be as great, but I think a lot of it comes from there, and especially in our society in the West, it is very, very stigmatized, and there's so much shame around sex. So I think that is probably a large part of it. And then most people in every area of their life, if something's not broken, then they are just cruising. They're on autopilot and they're just status quo, right? Don't mess up the status quo. Mm-hmm. But we don't want to do that. We don't want to be status quo type of people.
And I think everyone listening to this podcast, or majority of the people listening to the podcast, would be just like us. People that want to grow even in the areas that they're already successful, and they want to know, they don't want to leave any stone unturned. You like the challenge, but sometimes maybe your partner isn't feeling the same, or maybe you just don't know exactly where to start. So we're talking today about the absolute beginner. You've never done any relationship work before. Maybe you've never been in therapy. You've never done any personal development work, but you absolutely love your relationship that you're in.
And you want to take it to the next level.
Yeah, exactly. And I also want to say that not a lot of people talk about this. I think that not a lot of people talk about this because it's a very sensitive topic in terms of your relationship status says a lot about you. And I think society makes it like really important. Like society makes it really important. Like, I'm in a good relationship. It matters. And if anything's wrong, then it means you're wrong or you're bad, or what's wrong with you if you're having struggles in your relationship. And I think that there's a lot of, I don't want to talk about that because I don't want to be seen as a bad husband, or I don't want to be seen as a bad person, where I think that that's out there. Mm-hmm. And so it makes it hard to talk about because everyone wants to be in some type of relationship. Mm-hmm. 99.9% of people want to be in an intimate relationship. They want to have a partner long term. And seeing that like it's difficult, maybe it makes you like less appealing in all sorts of ways.
Yeah. And because no one talks about their issues, it's really hard to talk about your issues because you feel like you're the only one.
Yes. And intimate relationships happen behind closed doors. So I've heard a lot of times of, well, they seem like they're a good match for each other, but you never really know what happens behind closed doors. And I'm like, well, I want to know what's happening behind closed doors. I want my friends to talk to me about their relationships. I don't want to sit and have a bitch fest about my husband and talk about all the things that I don't like about him without the intention of getting through it. But I want to have conversations with people in my life about my relationship or professionals so that I can get through it and not just sweep it under the rug, because it will grow. And at the end of my life, when I die, you're going to be the person that I spent the most time with. That actually blows my mind sometimes when
Be wrinkly and saggy all over the place.
And you're going to be the person that I spent the most time with. And we all believe that we are the average of the people that we spend the most time with. And so that means I want you to be your best and you want me to be my best in order for us to live the best life possible. So I think your intimate relationship is your highest leverage point for growth in all areas.
Word.
So let's start. We are going to talk about how to just get started. You're in this place of it's a little bit uncomfortable. I don't want to say something. I get DMs all the time. I don't want to say something because I don't want them to think something's wrong. What do you suggest as being like the first thing that we do?
I think first off, you have to kind of plant your flag somewhere. You have to make a statement to your partner and to yourself that I am in a relationship that works on our relationship. You have to tell your partner, I love you and I want to continue to grow so that I love you even more. Mm-hmm. I think if you just try to adopt any of the habits or actions that we've talked about without making that larger statement, I think you can get a result, but you're not going to have consistent progress and it's not going to become a part of who you are and a part of your relationship.
Yeah. For me, it's really helpful to have a conversation and do this planting the flag in the ground and make it clear and obvious what you want so there's no confusion. Mm-hmm. And I think a safe way to do this is to really pay attention to the words that you use when you have this conversation. So we're saying go to your partner at a time that they're not like in the middle of doing something. Make sure that they have 100% of your attention. And
don't do it in the middle of a fight.
Yeah, don't do it in the middle of a fight, because then obviously they'll think that you're saying this because something is wrong, right? Because something is wrong. Do it when you're both feeling awesome. Maybe you just had an amazing date night the night before and you wake up in the morning and you say, hey, I would love to talk to you about something. Let me know when you have a second. You get 100% of their attention, and then speak in positives. Say something instead of saying, babe, nothing is wrong with our relationship and I want to also work on our relationship. Immediately the word something wrong in relationship is there. So that comes to mind. Instead of that, try saying, I love you. I know that you love me. I think our relationship is amazing for all of these reasons. And just like we try to be fitter in the gym, or just like we really want to succeed in our careers, I think that it would be really fun and powerful, sometimes uncomfortable, but amazing for our life if we focused on our relationship the same way that we do other goals in our life. Mm-hmm. And just see how that lands. And maybe they come back to you with like, what does that actually mean? Or I'm super excited about that. What ideas do you have? Just see where that conversation goes. And what we're going to talk about next is what things you can actually do to start working on your relationship.
I think a great analogy that you can add is that a professional athlete doesn't wait until his swing or her swing, if they're playing baseball or softball, is mm-hmm. broken and they're in a slump to work on it. They're constantly working on their swing so that they can get even better and better and better. And we treat our fitness that way. A lot of people listening probably treat their fitness that way, or that you might treat your career that way. But for all of the reasons we talked about in the beginning of this show, we don't treat our relationships that way. And that's a problem.
Yeah. We are taking a stand for you to treat your relationship the same way that you treat any other goals that you have in your life. If this isn't a goal of yours to work on maximizing and having the most amazing relationship possible, even if you think it's amazing already, I promise you, there are levels to it. I think that you could work on this for the rest of your life and never max out. Like there's just levels and levels and levels, and it just keeps going. So it's something that you can do forever. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Let's talk about some ways that we can start working on our relationship.
I obviously really love this, guys. And I think it's important. So I just wanted to get that point across. ways that you can work on this. First way is definitely probably the least accessible and the most expensive would be to hire some type of relationship coach or a therapist. In this one, I think it's incredibly valuable. I think it's incredibly valuable not just for your relationship, because you learn so much about yourself by speaking to another unbiased third party. It's also a safe place because you know this person has seen all sorts of crazy, and your crazy can't be the worst, you know? So I think having a relationship coach or a therapist is a really amazing thing to do if you have the means to be able to do that. My best suggestion would be not to just go to one and then not connect with them and say, this isn't right for me. My best suggestion would be to shop around and just maybe have a conversation with them, ask them the kinds of people that they love working with, ask them for some referrals to talk to some of their past clients. That's like what we would do if we had to start from scratch and find a new relationship. Do you have any other advice about finding a relationship coach or the value of it?
Did you say ask friends for referrals?
No, I just said ask the therapist for a referral.
Gotcha. Yeah. If you have friends that have done this type of work before, I highly recommend that. That's a really quick way. Also, just be patient. Like if you don't have a direct referral, then you might have to go to 2 or maybe even 3 before you find someone that really resonates with you. But just know that there is someone in your area that can help you. I had this really, somebody gave this great analogy once, like if like people talking about their emotions and their relationship to a wall is better than nothing. So if your therapist or your coach can be better than a wall, then that's a huge success.
Yeah.
So just be patient, stick with it, and you're going to find someone.
I think another great analogy for finding a therapist or a relationship coach is with the patience is like when you're going to buy a house. You don't just you want to buy a house and you're looking to buy a house. You don't just go to 2 houses and you don't like them and you're like, done. Like if you really want to buy a house and you want to invest in real estate, you'll keep looking until you find the right one for you. And if you pick one that is not the right one for you, then you end up having this like resentment and regret and maybe you waste money and you waste time and energy and all of these things, right? So keep looking until you find the one that you resonate with or connect with, and give people a chance. So that's what I have on that. Anything else on that?
Nope.
That was number 2. So we had put your flag on the ground. Then we have find a relationship coach or a therapist. And number 3 is going to be consume. So this is for anybody who maybe can't afford a relationship coach or a therapist or doesn't have one. In the meantime, something that you can do is to consume relationship content and talk about it with your partner. I consume a lot of business content. I consume a lot of content about fitness and nutrition. And I also consume a lot of relationship content. And it's a really actually cool, this is like a fun and interesting way to be working on your relationship, but reading something and then talking to you about the lessons that I got from it and how it can apply to our relationship can help us grow in many different ways. And some of my favorites are some books that I love recently. Getting the Love That You Want by the Hendricks. Amazing. It has honestly a whole bunch of exercises that you can do in the back of the book with your partner. Super powerful and useful. It also talks a lot about why you chose your partner, and you can have conversations around that. Really powerful. You might want to do like a little mini book club in your relationship. Michael and I do read to each other in the morning, so that would be maybe something fun to do. Another thing would be certain podcasts. So I love Esther Perel's Where Should We Begin? It's basically a live not live because it's recorded, but a coaching session with her and a couple where she's helping them work through she's never met them before. She's with them for an hour and she's helping them work through some challenges in their relationship. Listening to that has helped me so much because even if it's a lesbian couple with one of the women is deciding to transition to being male and they're struggling with that, I still have things that I can relate to my relationship from that conversation. So
some of my favorites. I love the Savage Lovecast. Same type of thing, like people of all sorts of sexual orientations, ages, genders, etc. But there's always something really, really insightful and useful for my relationship. I love the book Conscious Loving by, I can't even remember who. Do you know?
It's the Hendricks.
The Hendricks, but
think so.
maybe different Hendricks. Anyway, Conscious Loving, great book. It also has a bunch of exercises at the
Conscious
end.
Loving is Gay Hendricks.
Yes.
Getting the Love You Want is Harville Hendricks. Yeah.
Nice.
They're both Hendricks. That's interesting.
And lastly is The Way of the Superior Man. And don't worry about the title. This is something that's great for both men and women.
Loved it.
I've read it multiple times and get something very new each time I read it. And it's a phenomenal book.
Yeah. So consuming relationship content and talking about it with your partner is another great, like, low barrier for entry way to start working on your relationship. I feel like that's the least uncomfortable because you're talking about the content and then relating it to your relationship. It kind of guides you and can give you context and can give you a place to start. I think that that's a really great opening way to start doing that. And then the next thing that we're going to talk about is creating some type of ritual. And you can use the ritual to be a time that you use the relationship content. So maybe you have a weekly, like a Saturday, you guys spend an hour and you both talk about what you've consumed over the week. And that's what you do. And you like hash it out for an hour. Like, these are the things I learned. These are the things you learned. These are the things that I think could make our relationship better. And then you do that every week for an hour. Having something that you know that you didn't just plant your stake in the ground and say, I want to work on our relationship, and then hope that we're going to remember to do it. It's like saying, I want to lose 10 pounds, and then just saying that and then not doing anything about it. Putting some type of time on the calendar or a weekly event, or maybe a monthly event if weekly is too much for you, but a time that you can create a container where you're going to be talking about it and working on it.
Love it. Another one that's worked really well for us is for a long time, every morning we would just go and have a walk. And mostly every time Adee would ask, is there anything unsaid that you need to say? And what that was code for is there anything that I've been kind of holding in, or any kind of issue that I see in our relationship? Or is there anything that you want to acknowledge me for, or anything you want to praise me for? And it was just a cue to have a sort of vulnerable conversation. And because we had that habit in place, for years, we've been able to avoid having any like huge issues. Mm-hmm. Sure, we have fights, we have arguments, we have disagreements, and sometimes it gets heated, but we work through them really, really quickly because we have these rituals in place where we're having deep conversations on a regular basis.
Yeah. Also, this unsaid thing, sometimes when you get in conflict and you get into arguments, the reason why I think a lot of times we can move through things quickly is because we've talked about these unsaid things. I've been in relationships in the past where you're in this argument or you're in this conflict and you start bringing up the unsaid things because now shit's hit the fan. So now it's like,
now we're saying everything.
Yeah, you might as well talk about all the other things that have been bothering me. You know, you didn't take the trash out. Well,
your mom's fat.
Yeah. No, babe. That's a low blow. That's not what we're talking about here at all. But maybe it's like, oh yeah, well, like, you ignore me when we're around your mom, or like you just bring up all these things that annoy you about your partner because you're in conflict, and now it's like, this is my chance because I've been holding it in for the rest of the time. So having these unsaid conversations allows us to not have that or a lot of that at all, so that when we are in conflict, there's nothing just like out of the blue going to come up. I love having, is there anything unsaid? And one thing that I think should be talked about in that initial conversation that I didn't mention before is it's really important that both of you guys take this very seriously. Meaning, this isn't something that we're just going to not be engaged in or present with, and I'm going to be distracted on my phone while we're having these conversations. Or it's not something that I'm going to turn into a joke, or it's not something that, you know, I'm not actually gonna implement later, or I'm gonna do this, but it doesn't really matter to me. You have to make a commitment to take this seriously. One thing that I love about you so much is that anytime I ask this question, you've taught me how to take it really seriously. You take your time. You take your time whenever you're asked really any question. So I say, is there anything unsaid? And it's almost like you're pausing and you're searching through your brain. You're like going through all the hallways and all the doors and checking all the rooms and seeing if there's anything out of place that you want to talk about. And sometimes you say nothing. And sometimes it's even just like the littlest thing. Like when I'm brushing my teeth and you leave the bathroom, you don't close the door behind you. And that kind of bothers me. And I would have never known that if we didn't have that conversation. And it has really, for me, provided us an opportunity to build a lot of trust that we can hold each other's wants and needs sacred. So having unsaid conversations, going on a weekly walk maybe, or having some type of event where you guys are going to be talking, it's dedicated to working on your relationship. We need a time to be doing this or else it's never going to happen. And the last thing that I think is entirely underrated and not a lot of people talk about, and we are super passionate about this, is to surround yourself with other couples that are also committed to working on their relationship, or not necessarily committed to working on their relationship, but committed to being in this relationship. I know we can all know, we've known those couples before that they're together, but they kind of hate each other and they kind of bicker. Or you have the girlfriend that comes over and she just wants to bitch about her husband and complain about him. If you're in a group of people that they want to bitch about their partners, you're going to be sitting there thinking, how do I fit in? And what do I have to bitch about? And you're going to want to start participating in that way. Instead, put yourself around people that also are committed to being in a respectful, caring, committed relationship so that you start picking up on their habits of the way they talk about their partner, the things that they do, the times that they say, no, I can't hang out because it's date night with Michael and I, and we're going to go and spend some alone time together. That is just like making this little example in your head of, oh yeah, maybe we should have date night too. Anytime I've had a friend where I'm like, hey, do you want to hang out on Sunday night? And she's like, no, Sundays are like really reserved for my husband and I. That's like the time that we get to connect. I'm like, yeah, good for you, man. I want to have a Sunday night where we, I immediately start thinking about that. So you had some points about this too.
Yeah, basically like we think we think this way in a lot of different areas of our life. Like everyone's heard, not everyone, many people have heard, like if you want to be fitter, work out with fitter people. Like if you want to go to the CrossFit Games, try to hang out with and work out with CrossFit Games athletes. Or if you want to be rich, hang out with the rich people. We think in this way in other areas of our life, but almost never in relationships. I don't know if I've rarely heard of people talk about relationships in this way, but we are the average of the 5 people or the 5 couples that we spend the most time with. And that's because our environment, the people in it, shape us.
Yes.
So find people that you want to be more like.
One exercise that I've done recently that I think is really powerful in this way is think about the people that you're connected to or you have access to or, you can have conversations with, and think about the people that are in relationships that you really admire, or there's something that you love about the energy between them, and spend more time with those people. Like write their names down and have dates on the calendar to have double dates with them, or invite them over to your house for dinner. So we use that filter when we're hanging out with people. We also have relationships in our life that we admire for different reasons, like Pat and Taz Barber. We don't have kids yet, but we love the way that they parent their kids. We love the way that they establish their family rituals and the way that they act. We want to hang around them more because the way that they're committed to each other and their family is something we want more of. Or we have other couples for different reasons. We want to hang out with them more. So think about the people in your life and think about how they are in their relationships, and then try and spend more time with the ones that you admire or want to be more like.
Awesome. So to reiterate, we've got 5 things. 1, plant your flag and have some sort of initial conversation where you make a statement that you want to be in the type of relationship, like a conscious, committed relationship that works on itself and grows.
Yes. Number 2 is going to be find some type of third-party objective person that can have conversations with you and your partner. Maybe you alone, your partner alone, then you guys together, a therapist, a relationship coach, a love expert, a relationship expert, anybody that can help you figure out guide you, ask you questions, facilitate conversation, that type of thing.
Number 3 is to consume relationship content, whether that be books or podcasts or YouTube videos, and have conversations about what you're learning.
And then number 4 is going to be create some type of ritual or container where you a time where you're going to work on your relationship. Don't just say you're going to do it and then not have any plans to implement the things that you want to do. So whether it's a walk, a daily walk where you talk about anything unsaid, or it could be an hour that you choose to do the exercises that are in the content that you're reading, whatever it is, have something set where you're going to work on it.
And number 5 is surround yourself with couples that you want to be more like.
Thanks
for
guys.
joining us, guys.
Thanks for joining us. Stay in touch by signing up for our newsletter at workingagainstgravity.com or on Instagram at workingagainstgravity.
And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, and refer a friend. We'll be back next week with another episode. Talk to you then.